Hello, good afternoon. It is 20 past 3 on the afternoon of day 2 of the GBDURO. And I mentioned in one of those Instagram stories yesterday that I might try to get a guest in. I'm really pleased to have Neil Henderson joining me, fresh off the back of another ultra. Neil has just finished 7th in Mother North in Norway. Norway, right? Yeah, in Norway last week and is just home yesterday. So I managed to get hold of him before he jumps straight back into training for Scottish National Gravel Champs next week. Mother North was not Neil's first ultra race. He's done the Atlas Mountain Race, completed that before, and also is a two-time TCR finisher. I think perhaps most notably for one of the topics I want to cover later, he finished his first TCR in 2019, which means he joined that world the same year that the GBDURO did. So a little bit later, I want to ask his thoughts about what's changed in the ultra racing world between 2019 and today. But for now, hello, Neil. Thank you. Welcome. And
No
thanks for
worries.
taking the
Yeah.
time.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
So here we are. We're afternoon at day 2. People are probably starting to think about what their evening plan is. We've seen at least one post, somebody talking about where they're going to finish to try to target a repair for tomorrow before they crack on. We can see we've got our live tracking there. We see our race leader, Henry, is going into perhaps one of the most difficult off-road bits of Wales, going into a track they call the Gap, which I don't think any rider has ever made it through without walking, certainly not during the GBDURO on a laden bike. So yeah, people are starting to think about how much they're going to sleep, where they're going to sleep, did they bring the right kit, how many days are they going to go before they get into a hotel. Thankfully, so far, the weather has been really, really friendly and looks like it's going to stay that way for the next couple of days. So it seems like some people are going to crack on and make the most of the weather window. But we know that rain is coming at some point because here we are in the UK. So Neil, talk to us about day 2 of an ultra. This is the point where it starts to feel a bit ultra. What's going through riders' minds at this point?
Yeah. I mean, it's still early. It's still so early in the race. I mean, yeah, I think people will still just be kind of managing themselves, thinking about, like you say, where they're going to maybe get the next resupply or stop. I mean, people might be starting, still kind of looking behind them and sort of seeing the people that are around them and wanting to get away a little bit. I mean, there's real danger in sort of pushing too hard, even at this stage, trying to sort of get too much of a gap because, you could blow things out so early, just by pushing too hard, even at this stage.
Yeah. Uh, and like we said, we've got good weather for now. As things turn, are people going to start to reconsider what kit they brought?
I mean, I don't know, I was chatting about this even just at Mother North with a few people. It's actually so good just to start and then you can't make any more decisions. You can't make any more kit swaps. You just suddenly go, cool, I've got what I've got, and then you just have to manage the kit that you've brought with you.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, people do forget you can still actually buy things on the route. But no, I think the nice thing is like once you're in go mode, you just go, right, I've got what I've got. Just manage everything and manage the kit that you've brought with
And you're
you.
just in it, figuring out how to make it work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big relief.
Uh, and whatever repairs you're making, you're making. Uh, I know we've got this post from Keith McClure earlier. We've got a broken spoke and trying to make it into Bristol to get some help there. Did you see a lot of that in your last week?
Well, funnily enough, I was just riding with my pal Rick just at the very start of Mother North, and we heard a ping. We both didn't realize what it was until later, and Rick realized he'd snapped a spoke, and then two more went. So he had three missing spokes for the entire race that he managed to nurse to the finish line. So it is
Okay.
possible to do it, but I mean, you can, obviously just tighten a few up either side and hope that it's not going to get jammed in the frame with too much wobbling.
Yeah. Well, we hope all works out for Keith. Sounds like there's hope in that story.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hopefully they can get to a bike shop rather than just try and get to the finish with missing spokes.
yeah, I mean, I think Keith has still got some way to go to get to Bristol for that. Um, but looks like it should be doable. Um, so we've got riders going into some of these tougher terrain bits. I know you've not ridden the Gap, but it has its reputation. We can see everybody's slowing down as they get through. What's it like trying to work through all this tough terrain stuff? I know you've seen a lot of it here in Scotland and probably elsewhere, even if it's not in Wales.
Yeah, I mean it's always a challenge when things slow down so much and the weather comes in. I think that's when, sometimes you just have to go into survival mode and just think about every inch, every foot that you're making and just try and make all the forward progress you have. And even if it feels slow, just know that you're going to get out at the
Yeah,
end.
just keep going.
Just keep going. Yeah, I mean that's it. It's like you're the only person that can get you out of that situation. So you just have to keep pedaling or pushing or any kind of forward momentum, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Good. I'm sorry. I think I'm obsessed with rainy weather every time I look at that bit of the map, just because it's what happened to me in 2023. But clearly, that's
Oh,
not on
okay.
the cards for tonight. So they're
You're
all
getting
luckily,
flashbacks.
yeah. I was thinking about this actually a moment ago. This is not something I mentioned in our prep conversation here. Um, we've seen some photos of riders coming through into Bristol through the Bristol Balloon event, Balloon Fair, a big hot
Oh,
air balloon kind of event that has loads of spectators around. So it kind of looks and feels as you're coming into Bristol, all of a sudden, like you've ridden into a crowd of spectators, which is pure coincidence. It makes great photos. You've seen the one, or
that's incredible.
we'll show some on Instagram. Certainly, Claire, who's doing social media, has managed to get some great photos from there put up for us. Have been taken by Michael Drummond and Fergus Coyle, who are doing today's photos. So thanks to them. Um, but yeah, those kind of surreal moments where, yeah, that one was real and was only day two of the GB Duro for me. But seeing that photo again coming from this year, I suddenly went, oh yeah, that happened. And starting to think about those moments where you have memories of the race that you're not entirely sure if you've hallucinated that or if that's a thing that really happened. Uh,
But yeah, for sure. That's a big one.
and I guess maybe coming into the evening of day two, especially those that didn't stop, might be starting to have some experiences a bit like that. The wild things that you can't quite decide whether you dreamt that on the bike or if that was a thing that you really experienced.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there was definitely a few people having a few hallucinations on the bike during Mother North. Quite a few of us went through the night on the first evening and yeah,
Yeah.
saw various things. So yeah, looking back, you're like, did that happen? What actually really happened there?
Yeah. Or you hear a story from another writer and suddenly start putting pieces together and go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that's actually one of the beautiful things. Is like there's so many like stories interwoven into this, and you go, "Oh yeah, this happened. I saw you. Oh no, it was you. Oh, you were there," and you kind of piece together the story once you actually get to the finish line, and everything starts to make a bit more sense.
Yeah. Um, that's certainly one change that the GP Duro has implemented over the last couple of years. Previously had the enduro format or staged format, I guess, as evidenced by the name GB Duro, where everybody's clock stopped at the end of each of four stages. So there were three intermediate points where the clock stopped, and then the race began again as a mass start. And that's been rolled back. It's now single stage format for the
Uh-huh.
last couple of years. But there was one great thing about that, which was the sort of social aspect of ensuring that everybody regrouped at multiple times throughout the course of the race. And
Yeah,
so
certainly.
you would still see the leader, even if you were at the back
Uh-huh.
of the pack, as long as you were still in the game.
I always thought that was a super nice thing about the, like a really special thing about the GP Duro, or just a nice differentiator between all the other races. They're just one big race that you get to, you do kind of have that bunching up and you get to see everyone, having done quite a few races where I end up in the middle of the race and you never ever see the people
You see the same
at the,
five people.
yeah, you never see the kind of top folk, and even you maybe get to the finish line a few days after they finished and they had to go home for other things. You're like, well, I never even got to meet the person that won the race.
Yeah.
It's certainly a nice way of doing it for GB Duro, but obviously it comes with more logistics and everything. So it
Yeah,
might be
I
interesting
think
to
it's
hear
a
more about that.
I think it's a great kind of social opportunity, but I also understand, yeah, it's logistically more complicated. But I think maybe even more than that, when we're talking about inclusivity and trying to make sure that more people sign up to these races, I know that yes, the stage format forced the race leaders to stop and rest, so nobody could try to go the entire 2000K without more than an hour's sleep, which can be dangerous. Uh, but at the other end, I think it forced people at the back of the pack who were struggling to make a time cutoff to maybe push themselves harder than they wanted to go. Or those of us in the mid pack who weren't in danger of missing the time cutoff, but who really wanted to do our sleeping off the clock rather than on. We were then pushing through the night in the bad conditions to try to get to the end.
Ah,
So I don't
okay.
know that there's necessarily a good or a bad in having changed that rule. I think the GB Duro has continually evolved and constantly tried new things. And I think the organizers are really great about understanding that every change, every rule has its pros and has its cons, and that that's part of what a living, breathing event is.
Hmm.
And I guess that's kind of the other thing I was really curious to hear from you about is 2019 to today is your ultra racing career as well as the GB Duro. We've seen quite a lot of change in the ultra racing world over that period of time. Um, be curious to hear your thoughts on, I guess, for starters, how's equipment changed over that time?
Yes, I mean, it's an interesting question. I feel like there's actually really maybe not been a huge change in equipment. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean everything has been getting, progressively lighter and better. You've got brands coming out doing better frame bags and lighter frame bags, or kind of more aero frame bags. But I think overall there's maybe not been like a huge change in a lot of these things. I mean, batteries have been getting more powerful and lighter, but is that having a huge impact on the racing results?
Have you seen a big change in number of people using dynamos as batteries get better?
I think more people have been dropping having dynamos. I mean,
Okay.
I've certainly dropped having. I had a dynamo for most of my first races, and then actually dropped having that and just started relying more on batteries. I guess it also felt like the dynamo was a bit of a safety blanket as well, to maybe not being able to find a hotel, or maybe not being able to find electricity or anything. But I mean, even certainly in going through the Atlas Mountain Race, there was actually plenty of places to charge up battery packs and things. And if you're going off road a lot, then you're rolling quite slowly in some cases, and then not really making use of the dynamo hub.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I mean, there's pros and cons to these things, but I think I've certainly seen more people dropping using them.
Yeah, I feel like I've probably seen less of them as well. Might go and have a look at the bikes at GB Duro feature on Dot Watcher just to see
Uh-huh.
how many I can count in there. I
Yeah.
remember when I was getting ready for GB Duro, kind of doing some of the maths, or someone on some internet forum had pointed out something to me about these newer chargers, the GAN chargers, that you can charge some of these battery packs at 60 watts. And I think I worked
Hmm.
out that in an hour in a cafe, you could put more juice in a battery than a dynamo would give you pedaling steady for like 18 hours or something.
Yeah.
I can't
I mean,
remember
certainly
exact
that's what I
numbers.
take with me, one of these little GAN chargers, and then I've not done it myself, but I've seen people, even if they're just going in to grab some food, just quick charge, even just for
Yeah,
15 minutes as they're actually doing their shop, just ask someone if they can plug in.
Yeah,
So
can
yeah,
make a big difference.
for sure. I'd be
Of course,
interested to have a look at.
you get yourself
Sorry, I
into
guess.
trouble if all of a sudden everything gets wet, which I know I keep here I am. I was on a really wet year at the GB Duro, so not to make it all about me, but I think a lot of us kind of found out the hard way that all that stuff we thought was waterproof wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I had a cheap light. It was an exposure light that wetted out, and then
Mhm.
I had these waterproof bags, which were they were waterproof, but eventually learned that everything should go in some other kind of waterproof bag inside the waterproof bag.
Yeah, yeah, you got to double up on everything. I mean, so Mother North was incredibly wet as well, and everyone was having problems with their kit. Water getting into frame bags, phones just stopping working. So many people's bike computers actually were just stopping working as well.
Oh no.
Mine stopped charging. I couldn't get any power into it. I usually take a backup
Oh
device,
wow.
but I decided this year my backup device was going to be my phone, which was actually a bit of a mistake because my phone just wasn't working in the wet either.
Yeah. Uh, I think every ultra racer who's an iPhone user recognizes that notification that comes up that says like water detected in charging port.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
dry out iPhone to continue charging. And that moment, oh no.
There's an emergency override button,
Is there?
and you're like, yeah, and you're like, mm, do you want to press it?
Is this a good idea? Oh dear. Well, having now spent 10 minutes of your time and my time talking about the wettest races we've ever done, hopefully we've guaranteed a dry run all the way to John O'Groats for
I
these
really hope
racers, and
so.
it will become incredibly irrelevant.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can't live in Scotland for as long as I have, and well, and you have, you were born here, and not expect some rain before the end of a race like GB Duro.
Uh-huh.
Have you noticed any changes in strategy over those, what is it, 6 years?
Um, I mean, I think it's interesting because I would probably say to that people are just sleeping less and riding more. But actually, if you
Okay.
probably go through the history and to like some of the original TCRs and things like that, you'll probably see that people actually still slept hardly anything. But it certainly feels like maybe for some of the races that are like 1,000K, maybe 2,000, people are still really pushing it and just
Yeah,
sleeping less and less and less. And it's kind of incredible how much people can go without, maybe having their first sleep. But it's an interesting strategy because you see people really fading towards the end if they've not slept properly and they push too hard at the beginning. You see people sometimes having initially shorter days and then pushing really hard at the end in one kind of big push and jumping, multiple places and getting really high up in good rankings. So
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. I think that the perception is probably that people are sleeping less, but I wonder if they actually are.
Okay. Well, we'll be keeping an eye on all of our racers as they make it through tonight. See how many of them are going to sleep. We know at least one went straight through the first night. Said he doesn't sleep well on the first night. He's tried it before, a few ultras, and he just finds himself wide awake, too wired the first night.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
was saying,
certainly there is.
I'm going to be looking to sleep at from 8 o'clock tonight. When I see the right spot, I'm out.
Mhm.
And I think fair enough. Knows his pacing, knows how he functions best, and I think ultimately that's all we really want out of our racers, out of anyone doing this kind of thing, is push yourself, challenge your own limits, see what you can learn about yourself without doing anything dangerous, or without doing anything unnecessarily dangerous. I think maybe an ultra race might have a minor bit of danger just inherent in it.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
impossible to get through one of these things without hearing some sort of a crash story. Thankfully, all minor ones on this race so far.
yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah,
just really managing yourself and knowing what you can do, but like across the whole race and not doing too much too early, especially on something like this where you're about 2,000. It's a big race, so
yeah,
we were sort of talking about this last week around like you can just make this one mistake early, and unless you like really deal with that now. Like that mistake might not cost you at this point, but it's going to cost you later. You know, it's like later when you realize, oh, actually, because of this, now I'm in this problem.
Yeah,
And these
that
problems
ignored
sometimes, yeah.
that overuse injury you ignored,
Mhm.
or the broken spoke you decided you didn't need to fix.
It's like you're like, I can just push through.
uh, which is fine until you're in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
coming up to Karur, hoping they've got brake pads or something.
Exactly. Just go, oh, I don't need this kit anymore. I'll just chuck this out. And then, you know, you do realize you need it as when you get much further up the course.
Yeah. Uh, Talking of repairs and pit stops and all that, uh, have you got a clear strategy for how you deal with stuff when something goes wrong that makes sure you don't have to deal with a bigger problem later?
I mean, for sure, like I really just try and deal with stuff as and when. I don't really like leaving things, you know, like you were just talking about kind of overuse injuries or things. Like if I start feeling like I've got a problem, like, you know, my feet are hurting or something is happening, I always try and deal with it then and there. Because I think about the revolutions and I'm like, how many times are you gonna, you know, keep moving and creating more and more of a problem? You know, if you start getting some of these issues, you know, I'm just like, you know, stop, move your cleats back, move your seat down, like just a little bit, like do something, like try and take the pressure off your hands a little bit. I don't know, just try and do anything rather than just kind of go, oh, this will go away.
Yeah,
Because the length of some of these races, you're just going to make things worse, you know, dealing with problems a bit early. But I also have a bit of a thought process around like trying to maybe wait until I've got enough problems. Like I don't
so
want to stop
so
every
you're not
time.
stopping every 10 minutes.
Exactly. So it's like if I've got
Yeah,
three problems, that's about good. I'm like, right, okay, I'll stop and deal with three things. But otherwise, you know, it's like, right, I can move my seat down or move my cleats
yeah,
back and like eat and put a jacket on, you know, whatever, and then I'm off, you know, rather than just like stopping every time because you can end up burning through a lot of time just stopping.
yeah. I think there's also that thing about how many things can you remember at once? You
Mhm.
say threes. I can do threes in my head. I know racers who are able to comfortably type on the phone in the aero bars might even make a list, like a shopping list or a
Mhm.
list of stuff they're going to deal with. I'm not quite that confident. I'm not a good enough bike handler for that. Uh, but yeah, that tends to work out for me as I can remember three things. If I put four in my head, I'll somehow end up only doing one of them and then doing two other things that I didn't need to do. Uh, so yeah, what can you remember? How do you make sure your stops are efficient? And how do you make sure you make the good fix? Because I think the flip side of trying to deal with stuff immediately that I got myself into a bit of trouble with in starting in Wales and then a couple other places is going, oh, I think it was brake pads was the first thing. So I looked up just what was the next shop that was on the route and went there and it was shut. And then went to the next one and they didn't have the parts. And I'd gone off course a fair bit to get there
Mhm.
and then had to come back. Where someone else I was riding with had I think, a whole Di2 rear derailleur had to be replaced. And he'd taken the time to just stop, sit down, take
Okay.
an hour with his phone, call all the places ahead of time. Have you got the part? Have you got the part? And ended up, I think, phoning 2 or 3 days ahead in the end because nobody had it. And that was how far ahead he got before someone was like, yeah, I can order it and have it here by then. Um, so didn't have to waste all that time going to these various shops that are off the course and then having to get back. And
Mhm.
I burned a lot of unnecessary time doing that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, phoning ahead's useful. You can phone on the bike as well. I remember during one TCR, I was in a bike shop trying to get. I think it was actually I was trying to get like a seat pad because I was struggling a little bit with some some pain, let's say. And the phone rang on his phone, and it was a British number, and he freaked out and made me answer the phone. So he was like, "This must be for you," and I was like, "Okay, what?" Answered the phone, and it was this. I still don't know who it was, but this chap went, hey, how's it going? I'm doing the TCR. Have you got any chamois cream? And I was like, oh, hey, I'm also doing the TCR. I'll ask. They didn't actually have any chamois cream, but I was like, oh yeah, you can just phone on the bike and just phone ahead all these places and see what they've got.
Yeah. That's a fantastic tip that I should have taken. Other thing I wanted to ask you about before we start to wrap up is I think you rode the TCR with Henry, who's our current race leader. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he was ahead of me. But
Okay.
yeah, he did it in 22, I believe. That was the year I did it. I was actually just
Okay.
looked up. He came 33rd, I think, ahead of
Okay.
me. But yeah, he did a phenomenal ride on that. Met him at the finish line. Super nice guy. So yeah, I wish him
Yeah.
all the best for this ride as well. I think he's a really strong rider. So yeah, should
Yeah.
definitely one to watch and should put in a really good ride on this course, I think.
Yeah. We will see. We will see how this plays out. Looks like our three in the front are really holding some space against fourth and fifth place there. Uh, we've got
And you
Reese
mentioned there
and
was
Rich.
rumors that maybe Henry hadn't taken any sleep kit, or
Well,
is this
we
just
don't know. We
race
don't
rumors
know.
right now?
Yeah, race rumors. We don't know how confirmed that is. We've heard from another rider that someone up near the front didn't have
Okay.
much or any sleep kit. I think you and I both know how those things get exaggerated, so
Hmm.
we'll
For
assume
sure.
he's traveling very light. But I don't want to. I don't want to make an unfounded statement that he's brought nothing with him. Although that is a strategy, which is certainly available to riders now that the checkpoints have been removed, or certain now not necessarily the checkpoints have been removed now that they've changed the rule to say you can sleep indoors.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
for the first however many years of the GBDURO, a big part of that thing was about well how self sustaining are you if you're needing to find shelter everywhere. So you couldn't sleep under man made shelters. But
Hmm.
as of last year, riders have been allowed to sleep where they would like, which I think is a big part about making the race a bit more accessible and inclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking about where, I mean, if I mean, certainly it's a strategy to not take, drop a bit of weight and not take so much sleep kit. There's chunks of the race are quite remote, certainly up in the sort of tail end of Scotland. There's not a lot of places to book or to get a bed.
Yeah.
So maybe he's got a plan, or whoever, whoever this may be. Maybe they have a plan to kind of push through all of that. But yeah, certainly a good bit of kind of route studying, kind of knowing where you can stop and knowing where you can potentially get shelters. There are shelters up there to
Yeah.
to use, of course.
Plenty bothies and things.
Yeah, exactly.
Just gotta make sure you time your stops carefully the further north you get. Or I guess
Hmm.
in Wales, and then you've got a bit more frequency of stops once you come back into England. And then maybe up as far as the Central Belt, even Callander in
Hmm. For
Scotland.
sure.
But once you're leaving Cullen and basically following the Badger Divide and then up onto some of those Highland Trail 550 routes, you've kind of got to know what the plan is for the next stop if you haven't got anything significant with you.
Exactly. Especially as the weather's starting to come in. Riding through the night can feel great unless it's really coming down on you. And then it's not so much fun.
Yeah. Uh, good. Anything else we said we're going to cover? Or shall I wrap up there and let you
Now we
have your
can
afternoon
wrap
back?
up there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Neil, for taking the time. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. And I hope you'll keep up with the race as we go on.
Of course, will do.
For anyone watching, let us know if you like this kind of content, if you want to hear more of it, or if we're just chatting a bunch of mints that should be in some other third-party podcast. Because I know I've enjoyed talking to you about it and sort of speculating about what's going on in the race. I hope you've had an all right time too.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. Always a pleasure to speak to you, Alex.
Great. Thank you so much, Neil.
All good. All right. Take it easy.